Welcome to the podcast where we take a deep dive into the stories behind construction business leaders. We will share how they got started, how they found success, and the lessons learned along the way. I'm your host, Eric Fortenberry. Welcome to Builder Stories. All right. Welcome, Wally. It's good to talk to you here. Why don't you go ahead and just tell us a little bit about you, name your company, what you guys do, how you got started, stuff like that.
Yeah, so I'm a concrete contractor, and we do everything from, residential driveways, patios, foundations, and light commercial, some light commercial stuff. And I got into this more so, my background, actually education, I went to school for computer science, but I didn't like what I was doing. And I grew up on a labor camp with my grandparents, right? So I put a lot of value in labor and all that. And not that that was necessarily the smartest path, but I'm happy, right? But the thing is I grew up doing this kind of work with somebody else. And I think just from seeing my grandpa, the way he worked and stuff, this was the closest thing to him he was a labor contractor, Mexican guy they moved here from Mexico, and he built a life for himself and did really well. So for me, that was kind of the direction I took with wanting to have a business, and I figured, hard work pays off. And
Sure.
and so I got to be a contractor, and the thing is, it's not necessarily what is harder than you think, right? To start out and get a name and everything, but I'm here. I put a lot of time in, and referrals is pretty much how we get our work now. And we've got ourselves in a niche of doing, more so higher end residential projects, anything from foundations. Even the foundations are not just your basic slab, right? We're doing wraparound porches and steps and walls and things like that are not just structural, but even decorative, right? And that's kind of our niche here and we're in California, central by Davis, which is where most of our work is.
Awesome. So I assume you started off kind of working for, the family business for someone else, but at some point you decided to, start your own. I mean, what year was that? And, kind of tell us a little bit about how you actually got the business, got it started, and, maybe what challenges you had early on.
Well, I think the biggest challenge, I started with it actually was a family friend. He was a concrete contractor, and I started with him, and then I decided to go out on my own. I started in 2004 on my own. And when I went out, I'd say the biggest challenge was bidding, right? Because nobody really, I think most people don't bid correctly.
Yeah.
And not to say that I'm an expert at bidding, but I've seen enough and made enough mistakes to where I know where there's room for improvement. And a lot of it was through it was through software, or looking at how estimating companies do their estimating, right? Which I think to the point, I think I'm a little bit more OCD when it comes to what I do, but it's because of fear of pricing things incorrectly. And the other thing is which is kind of how I got to you guys, is when it comes to doing a bid, it's either way. I don't want to charge too much, and I don't want to charge to where we're losing money. But what I found was that a lot of people are kind of throwing a guess out there based on maybe prior experience. But like I said, we're not the cheapest guys in town. But the thing is that when we do give a price out, I'm confident in the number we give, because I put probably too much time into figuring out what my price is going to be, so I can give it to them confidently. This is the price. Either if it doesn't work, then we're probably not a good fit. But it's because the way we do things, right? We're not cutting any corners. We're our minimums are basically good, better, best. We're always in between better and best when it comes to what our minimums are, because good isn't good enough for me to put my name behind when you got to go back and for instance the rebar spacing, or rebar at all, or 6-hat concrete mix, things like that. There's a certain threshold where we won't do things below a certain quality just because I don't want my name on it. But I would say, yeah, the biggest challenge I've had is throughout everything is basically is more the estimating portion, which is incidentally how I ran into your guys' company.
Yeah. And so what year did you start the business?
2004.
2004. Okay. And how many employees do you have now?
So right now we're at 6. I've always been about this size, and
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't even. I mean, I could see myself going. I could see myself going a little bit bigger, but I don't. It's not necessarily my intentions with the niche that I'm in. I'd be happy with 2 crews running around,
Sure.
but yeah, that's kind of where we're at.
So are you guys like, of those 6 people, how many are in the office versus in the field?
Well, and that goes back to how I got to you guys is basically I'm in the office and my wife is helps me with that.
Gotcha.
Sorry about that.
So everyone else is actually out there in the field doing the work.
Yeah, and I've tried to maximize, software to where, as far as I tried to make it to where I can eliminate, I have a bookkeeper, I have a tax person, and as far as the office goes, I try to leverage software to make my job easier to where I can get rid of some of that stuff. And at some point, I know I need it, and I'm not beyond not wanting to grow, but I just know what happens when I know what happens at the level when you start getting past what I have right now.
Yeah.
It becomes a bigger headache, and I don't, you have to have the right people in place, and that's a struggle, right? Finding, especially in my trade, what I find is I get people in. It's just concrete's not the easiest thing in the world to do, right? So it's, I got one kid that's new, and it's interesting because he's a hard worker. Hard worker, right? And I think, as he learns more, I think he becomes more confident, and somebody like that you can grow on. Well, a lot of people that we hire, they get here and it becomes a choice. Do you want to do this the rest of your life? Right. Well, not everybody's like me. So that's a big challenge with my trade, because it doesn't get easier as you get older. It can, if you can delegate and show people and teach them, but concrete, there's a lot of personalities where, I just actually had to let go of a guy. And one of the biggest problems is he didn't communicate well with others, and he didn't treat them the way they should be treated, with the same respect that he'd want back, right? Yeah. And again, that's a lesson that maybe should have got rid of him sooner, right? But as far as business goes, I would say that those are the biggest things is cutting where you need to cut, and estimating properly, and finding talent is the biggest challenge I run into.
Sure. So take a quick step back. So what's it like working with your wife? You guys, get along and delegate responsibilities, or you ever have any conflict there? How's that work out?
No, so right now she's handling the time card situation, and as far as she's basically handling all that, because what I found is I get so wrapped up in doing all that stuff that, because usually it wouldn't be so bad, but we've been doing a lot of time and material, and time and material is horrible for it's just horrible to sort out the time cards and where they were. And I know, we're still in the process of right now with my guys using your software. I haven't got them totally punching into every job or task or anything like that. We're just, my wife handles it at the end of the day, and she can tell. I got GPS on the vehicle, so I can tell where things were, right? Because I just, she's getting acclimated to use the time portion of the program, but I'm just happy she's there, because the problem that I was running into is no time for the family, and either you're working or you're in here. And what I ran into was I need more time to bid work and sell jobs. And so as far as the administration portion of it, it just gets to be, I want time with my family and all that too. So, which is where you guys come in, because at this point I can actually see that coming here quickly, right? Because she's dealing, I think, she's dealing with time cards, and not that it should be that hard, but maybe that's the way I'm wired, but it is. And I think, one of the things that I found with having my wife do it, I mean, this isn't big business, but I get a lot more, let's just say, as far as my guys are more responsive with my wife than even me when it comes to are your time cards in. I think they're more, so I like it, right?
Awesome. do you guys have like when, you know, like supper time comes and you kind of like have a clear, you know, now it's family time, or do you find that, you know, you guys are kind of also working, you know, working into the evenings, or, you know, does that ever overlap?
We sit down, eat in the kitchen, and sometimes they bring my food to the office. It depends what I'm doing that day.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I mean, your family has to support you to do any business, right? And I know, my wife's always been there for me, and my kids, they grow up in it, right? So they're 12 and 13, so they're used to it by now. Do I want more time with them? Yeah, I mean, my son's actually home right now, and my wife is off at the it's like a water park where they got water skiing on cables and stuff. So she's
Oh,
out there
nice.
with my daughter and her friends. But my son went to work with me today, and he came back with
That's
me
awesome.
to do this.
So do you, I guess, where are you guys getting your leads from? I mean, is it just, you said referrals. Are you asking for those referrals from, from existing customers? Is it, you guys using like a website? I mean, what's been the biggest, lead generators that's coming in, and, how do you take it from, from being a cold lead, or, hopefully maybe a warm lead, to, getting out there doing the estimate, to, kind of closing them into a job?
So, I mean, I've never had a shortage of work, but basically, actually, take that back. From January to March was horrible, because there was I'm here in Central California, and from what I do, we had about 3 months of rain every third day, which is just enough not to dig footings, right? And that's what we had coming up. So we took a hit there. But as far as leads go, I mean, pretty much all my leads come from previous customers, or sometimes I ask, and they come from like, there's a website, I believe, next door,
Yep.
which I can't even see what's going on there, but apparently people pass our number around there as well, right? So usually it's referrals, that, and then there's general contractors we do work for. So
Yeah.
there's enough to fit us all in. And actually, this year I told myself I wasn't going to overbook, because we're not huge, right? And the thing is you have to have the people there to staff the jobs, and I've got to be of enough free time to actually do a good job for the client. And I think with the coming out of COVID and all that, there was supply issues and contractors backlogged, and so we got to where we're waiting, all of a sudden everybody's ready to start at the same time. And so we were trying to make all that work, and I told myself I ain't doing that this year, because it was just it was too much of a headache. And then you can't provide the service that you want to provide when you get overbooked like that.
Yeah.
So that's what, moving forward, like I told you, letting go of the wrong people, bringing on the right people, and actually, helping the kids that need to be trained to get better and learn. And because, a lot of the people that have done work for me in the past, they're aging out and getting to where they're not the guys in the trenches. And so that's what I'm trying to create now. I'm building up those. I got some other guys with experience to show them. But and then, quite honestly, the biggest, I would say, I found a whole new motivation for, you get burned out on this stuff. And honestly, when I found your guys' software, I mean, what's crazy is there's things that it doesn't have that I would want, right? But there's so much of what I need that it does have that nobody has all. And you guys are relatively new, right? But it's so crazy how much that you guys got right, just from what I've seen. And I haven't been using it terribly long, but I got more. I can't even find. There's so many different directions I can go as to how happy I am with the software. The estimating. If it doesn't do it, there seems to be always a way I can do it, even if it wasn't intentionally there. And what I found with other platforms I've been on is you put a lot of, this is the problem, is you put a lot of time into one of these platforms, and I used one of your competitors, and you figure you put the money into it, and they say this is coming, this is coming, this is coming. You go, 3 years down the road, and I ain't the only one. That next thing you know, their release comes out, and I go, well, this is nothing like what I envisioned. And you think, well, okay, well, maybe it's me, because they're kind of telling you how to run your business, not how they can help you run the business the way you run it, right?
Sure.
And what I found was you put all this time into building it out, and the next thing you know, well, in my case, you get to the estimating, I'm like, it's impossible. You cannot estimate with the tools that I was using and the programs I was on, because the problem is that they treat it as if in other words, I guess a general contractor would get cabinets, foundation, siding, or framing. They just plug a number into each one of those things from a sub. And the problem is that's how they were trying to tell us to estimate, and that's not the way I estimate. I estimate, subgroups and assemblies and all that kind of stuff. And that goes back to where, even if something doesn't work, like on yours, you guys have subgroups, which makes it way easy, so much better for me. It's so much clearer to put an estimate together. I don't have to flip back and forth to different pages. And when it comes to assemblies, I know you guys are coming out with them. They don't exist now, but I mean, I haven't even used everything in the mass actions menu, but the mass actions, I can actually create a temporary assembly until you guys do have them, because that's where I say I'm not totally just blown up where I can't do something. There's still a way to get there, and it's just cleaner. There's it's I'm just blown away. Like, I'm blown away that obviously there was some experience in construction that went into building this, because what I felt in the past from customer service, from the other products I've used, is the people I'm talking to, and I get it, even if they did have construction experience, right? The problem is the people you're talking to, it doesn't take very long for me to figure out that they have no concept of how a contractor does their work. Nor do I think they really have a good communication with the people that are building their software. They're literally taking notes and passing it to somebody that I don't think it ever goes past a meeting with like 25 people talking about the next color they're going to put on or something. I really don't think there's no understanding of what you're trying to do. And what I found is, like, I go back, I know this is a long drawn out comment on your question, but I just feel like it can only get better. You guys aren't hiding. I mean, your guys' Facebook group, I mean, I see you commenting on there, and I feel like a lot of software, they hide all that. Well, if you're hiding because the questions that your customers may have, well, that's because you're not confident in their response to your answers, right?
Sure.
And you guys are right out there talking to people, and maybe even if I haven't had this happen, but that dialogue's there, right? Maybe there's a better way than I think, or somebody else thinks, but you guys are out there talking to people. And that's what I found. I found that for the most part, everybody else is, it was almost handled in such a way that if I'm doing something that I want to do, and I know other people, for the most part, I'm small fries, right? Big outfits bid like I bid. Like big projects, they bid like I bid. And the thing is, that's just the way it's going to be for me. And I don't get kickback from you guys to where, like I said, using assemblies and all that, my buddies, other people in the same field, I kick numbers back to compare and see if we're in the same range, and we are, but their way to get to it and my way to get to it are two different ways. But again, the number one thing that's important to me is when I hand it to a customer, because a lot of times, I think it's true for a lot of people, you give somebody a price and your fear is that you don't want to be way out of the park, right? And you also don't want to burn yourself. So that's where I come back to, I know what I want my profit percentages, margins to be, and I can, bid things out based on linear square feet, man hours, all that I'm confident with the price that I give. And when you can be confident in the price you give, even if it's higher or lower, if you're confident in the price you give, it's even easier to sell and people trust you. And, and you can explain yourself. So I feel that you guys have given me a really good opportunity to do that in an efficient manner. Whereas in order to do that on other systems, I was jumping all over the place. And previously, the one I was using before, the big deal was they brought in takeoff, right? which Takeoff is great. I use Takeoff software. But the problem there again is your catalog items are mirrored over, but even though they're mirrored over, you're still maintaining, it's tricky. It's not that clean. It doesn't just happen. You have to make sure everything's synced and the buttons pushed the right way. Whereas, at the end of the day, if you guys have assemblies and everything, heck, I can use a third-party Takeoff software, get general numbers, plug them into an assembly, and that's way faster than dealing with all that.
Yeah, I think just kind of one of the unique things, I built JobTread out of a needs basis while running, a construction company. And so, I also recognize though that like, just because this is the way that we did it, that's not, how everyone might do it. And so I think we've been very mindful about keeping it, as flexible, to be able to meet the needs of many different types of businesses out there. Cause, again, at the end of the day, like, we want to make sure the tool works well for each and every business. And, it's, some things, you just can't come in and kind of try to, dictate and say it's our way or the highway. So, I think we've really done a good job of making it flexible. I was curious to ask you though, I mean, do you still go out on the job site? Like, are you also operating as kind of the project manager? Or...
Yeah, I'm out there. I came back for this meeting, but I was out there until about 1, right? Yeah. And I hit back this my time, but yeah, no, I'm out there. And the thing is, I have to be out there until I build up, yeah. I got rid of my main guy that I had. And like I said, I'm 6 people. So right now it's a matter of finding everybody else. They can do things without me there, but he wasn't serving the function that,
sure.
Like I told you, you're supposed to train people, and you're actually losing the employees. So
how many jobs are you running like at one time, like concurrent, is it?
I would say for us, we get about 3, but it's only staggered out because usually we go to a job where we try to be there till it's done, but you have curing and you have setting forms waiting for your concrete. So usually it's about 3 hopscotching back and forth.
Yeah.
And so yeah, just basically, yeah, that's about 3.
So how far out are you booking to start, your next jobs?
Well, that's funny that you asked that, because I've never been I talk to a lot of people. Oh yeah, we're out till next January. I'm out till about a month, and I'm not worried about it because it always comes, right?
Yeah.
And the thing is that, and that's only because, maybe I'll get more confident in that, because our projects are probably they can be months out, but basic, foundation or driveway or patios, they're 2 weeks. So,
sure.
We get a couple in front of us, but as far as looking out months in advance, I mean, you couldn't keep that promise last year, that was the problem, is that you ended up, with other people's schedules and supplies, that it was a horrible deal. So this year I feel like I'm just kind of like, tiptoeing up to it, right? Yeah. Just because I didn't like the way that it went last year. So like I said, as far as once the season's open and we're working, we're going, but I think your software will help me with that, with the scheduling and everything. I think it's going to help me, because one thing that I looked at is that your guys' dashboard and the fact that I can push your calendars over and it's the syncs real time, and just some little nuance that's crazy is that little check mark that shows up on the subscribed calendars.
Yep.
I don't know who came up with that one, but that's crazy, because I see all these other ones where there's a task there, you don't know if it's done or not, and somehow I get a green check. I think it's an emoji that pops up in there, which that lets you see things and however you want to see it, but yeah, it helps. And don't get me wrong, that my goal, I'm at 6. I don't want to grow unless I'm comfortable, and I feel like I'm going to be a lot more comfortable.
Yeah,
I already am, right? So
I mean, it seems like potentially next step is where you look to get a project manager or somebody who can solely focus on kind of managing those projects. That essentially lets you kind of step out of the field a little bit more, working more on the business, probably keep doing the estimating. But then, you're able to trust them to manage the project from start to finish, and, basically, maintain that same quality that, that you would expect if you're out there running the job. When I started at the construction company, and we were managing from 10 to 15 concurrent projects, and I mean, we had several project managers, but a year later, after implementing, kind of building out this this solution, we could handle anywhere from 70 to 80 concurrent projects. We didn't add any additional project managers. I probably spent less time, even on site, because we had the ability to kind of oversee and manage all those jobs. But, it tremendously like helped us scale the business because we're able to take on more projects, and we still, hit our target profit margins. We still maintain that same level of quality. We completed them on time. And, but it does take kind of, at some point, you can't do everything, right? As the business owner, you got to kind of figure out, what do you want to delegate out, make sure you get the right person in that, in that role. And, kind of helps you keep growing, but, potentially maybe you grow to, 5 concurrent projects or something like that. And yeah, I mean,
Yeah, and I mean, that honestly, I mean, I that's possibility. I just, like I said, concrete's a little bit different than most businesses, but for sure I could see getting to double the crew size. But as
sure.
far as yeah, that, I mean, like you said, I think a lot of those lessons, it takes a long time to figure them out. Well, it did for me. I don't know if it takes everybody that long to figure it out, but I think the first one everybody learns is estimating, and then that you think you're charging right for years, and then you figure out you haven't been right. And then I got to a point where you realize as your prices went up, you're still getting work. Okay, well then that makes you feel kind of silly that all that time, right? And it's not that, and you're not, and then you're not getting rich. You're just trying to build your business. Because for me, I spent a lot of time buying more equipment, and then once you get that stuff, I think as you go along, because I didn't go to business school or nothing like that, but then you realize, okay, well, I got this. Well, it's not just a perk that you have it. You have to be able to buy another one when that one's done, right? So that's where the overhead for the trailers, mobilization, all that kind of stuff. It took me a long time to figure that stuff out, just because I didn't have somebody that was telling me any of that. I learned everything just kind of going down the road. And granted, I'm 46 or 45, I forget. Anyway, I think I know everything I need to do at this point, and we have the client base. We stay busy. I don't think my prices are too low or too high. So it's just a matter of getting everything, running the right direction to where it doesn't happen like last year, where you're just way, too spread out.
So what was it though? I mean, you talked about increasing your price, and you realized that, you still had the work coming in. I mean, what was that catalyst that got you to start thinking about, charging more? I know a lot of people struggle with, feeling like they're overpricing or they might lose the jobs. But I mean, how did you kind of make that leap to increase your profit margin there?
The way I did that was I figured out, I started looking into different literature as far as overhead recovery systems and how you're supposed to actually price to make sure you cover, everything, right? Your equipment, everything that goes into the tool trailers, the dump trailers, the trucks, the excavators, all that stuff, right? And what I found was, once you start plugging all that stuff in, you realize, okay, what do you need to cover from your, like I give you one example, and I've been told 2 different ways, for a long time, I only marked up labor, right? And I learned that from another concrete guy that had a seminar, and he's pretty big in the concrete industry. As far as education and stuff goes, the world of concrete, and he's successful in his own right. But he did that way, and his reasoning was that way, if he actually needed to tighten his numbers, the way he explained it was that he knew exactly what his bottom line was on a job, because it was all based on the labor, right?
Sure.
Well, that's fine, but it doesn't necessarily work, because because like I said, we do walls and we do different things. Some of that stuff is really labor intensive, and some of it is, it can vary with what I'm doing, because we do very big spectrum of different types of concrete work. But what I found that it worked better for me when I went and started figuring out how much I need to be marking up materials, how much labor to get to that number. Then, it just, a light bulb went off, and I realized this is what I need to keep this business going. So it doesn't matter whether I like the price or the customer liked the price, that's the price. And so once you can convince yourself of that, well, then, you almost, that I think I think people, I don't know, is that, am I close to your understanding of it, or?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think once people start to actually track, their cost and their numbers and really like learn, what it takes to deliver on, both the labor, the material, I think that's when people start to see that, that epiphany of, oh man, like we were way undercharging over here and, we weren't adding markup over here. And like, I think it just is very helpful for them to start getting that insight. And so then you can start saying, okay, well, let's back into what do we actually need to be, taking profit wise from this job to then cover our overhead costs to be putting enough money, at the end of the day into net income.
And you know where I got that from, and it was the most obscure place to find it is, with what I do, we do a lot of concrete work, and that's our license. That's what we do. Well, we started, a lot of our competitors ended up being landscapers. And I'm like, how the heck are you trusting this landscaper to do a couple $100,000 in concrete at your house when they're plant people, right? And I'm like, well, I could put a plant, I can do plants, right? Which, there's a learning, there's a lot to know. And right now we're pursuing that, but through contractors that we do work for, we started doing, the whole thing, the concrete and landscaping. Well, it just so happens this, again, like I told you, I've tried different software to see what, so like your guys' everybody's schedule's their schedule. I don't have a crew running off this way and a crew running off that way on a set schedule like a landscape business. But that's where I got the material overhead recovery systems, was because there was a piece of software that I was looking at, and not so much the software didn't work for me because they do handle time cards and scheduling as a group. There is no drawn out schedule with all these different jobs. It's basically it's almost like for service, right? But the way they did it's part of their software, and it's a good idea, I think, for any of the software. Is what they built into their software was basically a route for somebody to figure out what they're supposed to be pricing. And they actually had resources as far as, I think legally they don't give you an actual number, but they tell you percentages that are close based on your annual revenue, which this is where people are between this percentage and this percentage. Well, I'd never seen software that started up by, when you get your company started, to try to figure out what your in other words, I know what the number is per hour for my guys, and I can work it out on a spreadsheet as far as what I need to mark them up and what I need to be marking up the material. But the thing is they actually had it built into the system where you plug in your numbers for equipment, for all these different things, just a worksheet, right? Yeah. And it kind of gives you, this is kind of where you should be, and then you could adjust that based on how much profit margin do you want at the end of the year. And I found it to be true. Right. And I'd never seen that before. But again, their software is not intended for my particular business. Right.
Sure. But
I learned a lot from that. And I walked away from that thinking, well, how come, and I've seen other people that do it, but they don't, I've got books on it just to try to figure out, but I figured that out now. But it's just, shoot, I'm 46 or from 46, I think. Anyway, I figured that out, like, maybe it's embarrassing, but I figured it out maybe 2-3 years ago. Yeah. Right. After all this time. And I still don't think a lot of people bid like that, but I do think it's the correct way.
So you've talked about a lot, of softwares that, you've used over the years. And it sounds like, having a system in place has been, really helpful for you to scale the business. What advice would you give others about, how do you find the right software for your business? And, because, there can be a lot of options, but like, how do you really kind of try to pick and, sort of determine which one's going to be the best fit for you?
Well, me personally, I mean, I think as far as your guys' software is concerned, I would just save a bunch of time and use this, because it's not, I don't think it's particularly marketed. I don't think your software was built for Wally the concrete contractor. I think, but it feels like it was, right? And that's where I look at everybody else's and I'm like, okay, well, how am I going to make this work for me, right? And I mean the same thing, but the thing is, with all the other ones that I've been through, like I said, you couldn't project manage on multi-job. It's basically like routes. And then what I found with the other ones, I couldn't estimate. Maybe the project management's great, but I couldn't estimate. And at the end of the day, what I found is, like, for me, because I don't have a guy running the finance department and the estimating department and the project management department. I am that guy, is what I found, is that, you know, one of the things that I like about this is that if there's something that needs attention, it's on the freaking dashboard. It's on the main page, right? And whereas, and you need that, you need to know if there's an invoice due, or, you know, if as far as your schedule or what the guys did yesterday, and everything is right there. And that's, I would say that's a pretty important thing, is because I'll forget, you know, I'm going 20 different directions, that just seeing it there, it helps me. I go to my calendar and it pops up there, and I only see you guys getting even more. Anyway, that's I get off on a tangent, but I just found that
Sure.
you know, I find that basically, if there's no easy answer to that. If you're not me and haven't tried them all, well, then the problem is that you're probably going to try them all until you figure out that you didn't try this one. And then, like I said, of everything I've tried, you can do everything everybody else did, but you do everything everybody else. They all did a little bit of something, right?
Yeah. So, you know, maybe just kind of to wrap up here, I mean, if you had to, you know, thinking back kind of over the entirety of your business, like if you had to come up with, you know, one or two, you know, pieces of advice that you would give other contractors, you know, what would it be to help them, you know, achieve that same level of success that you've seen, and, you know, be able to build their business and be able to have that, you know, more family time, you know, be confident in your numbers, you know?
Well, you know what? I'll take a step back from that, because I'm learning every day. But when it comes to, you know, the success and everything, I don't think there's always room for improvement. I don't feel like this. I don't feel like I'm some huge success. I'm just a concrete guy out there making a living, right? And I'm still around, which is you know, to me, that's a win for now, right? But I see the potential for more growth doing this. But I would say that the most important things that I've learned is, you know, number one, pay your guys enough. If you want good people, it's going to cost you. So you're better off spending more on good people that are going to communicate well with the rest of the employees. I think that's probably, the guys that work for you are the number one. It's the number one tool you have, right? Yeah. And so when it comes to, you know, it's crazy, because like I told you, the guy that I let go was just button heads with everybody. Since I let him go, the guys that I have out in the field, like today, you can literally within a week and a half, you can see the I mean, it's night and day. You can see people wanting to take on more tasks, almost like they're just happy he's gone, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, and you encourage people, right? And I've just found that it's crazy. You almost kick myself for not letting the guy go sooner, because it's, you know, he brought value. But I mean, the problem is that he brought value as a lone soldier, not as a team player, right? And so it didn't benefit the company, because one guy out there working hard doesn't really help if he's not leading everybody else. And you know, that's why I'm out working right now too, is I'm out in the field to try to facilitate that. I was, even when he was around, but I wasn't there all the time, because I'm trying to get more work. It's more people. But
no, I think that's great advice. And, you know, I think really, you know, at the end of the day, that the heart of any company is its people, and you got to make sure you've got the right people on the bus, you know, the wrong people off the bus. And then, you know, as a team, you can drive that bus together. And, you know, it's, you know, one bad apple can spoil the apple cart for everyone. And so it's certainly, I'd say that's a great piece of advice to, you know, really make sure you focus on building the best possible team that you can. And, you know, you got to invest in your people, pay them right, train them, you know, but at the end of the day, not everybody's going to be a good fit for every company. And, you know, sometimes you do have to make those hard decisions, and, you know, it's just got to do what's best for the business. And, you know, a lot of times the emotional, you know, connections and, you know, kind of that relationship, depending on how long it may be, you know, can be something to, you know, you got to take into account. But it's, at the end of the day, you know, making the right decision. It's interesting how, like, just instantly you see the benefit of, you know, sometimes removing somebody, And sounds like you've seen that with your team, and ultimately, hopefully, that gives you confidence that you made the right decision. And maybe in the future, if you see those same kind of red flags starting to pop up, you'll know to step in and kind of do.
Oh yeah, well, you know what's crazy is that my dad I talk to my dad about every day, and he calls me up the other day, and he knows about everything. It was kind of traumatic the way this went down, but it ended up being theft, right? The guy stole from me, but not a tool, nothing like that, from my wallet. Okay, so here's the thing but that the thing is after this all happens, it's funny because just going to work, I'm like, everybody's happier. And it's funny because I talked to my dad, and then I get off the phone. I wasn't talking about that, but I got off the phone with him, and he goes, "Man, you sound a lot less stressed out now." And it was because, I had I don't know. I kicked myself in the butt because it was probably, should have been done a long time ago. Right. Yeah. And I think part of it for me was, I don't have the heart to throw somebody, because he was with me for a long time, and I don't like the power to ruin somebody's life. And I felt like that was about what was going to happen. And it probably is happening right now. And the thing is that, because I did do a lot for him, and the thing is that it was just a bad choice to keep on that ride. Right. Yeah. But that's, that's why I feel like right now it's just, I found you guys, that situation's taken care of, but I'm positive for this year. So
awesome, man. Well, hey, I really appreciate you taking the time today to share a little bit of your story and background and some of the challenges that that you've been dealing with in your business and how you've overcome them. It's hopefully this conversation can help others grow and improve their business as well. So thanks again for coming on, and look forward to watching you continue to grow and build the business. Doing good work, Wally. Thanks for joining us for this episode of Builder Stories. We hope you enjoyed the conversation and gained valuable insights that can help you in your journey along the way. Don't forget to subscribe to the show and leave us a review. And as always, if you or someone you know has a story to share, please contact us at builderstories.com. We'd love to hear from you. I'm Eric Fortenberry, and remember, every builder has a unique story. Keep building yours.